The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we're coming to you from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. This is the home for Autism Live. It is also the home for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, and we're thrilled to share space with them. Thrilled to be here with you on this Thursday morning. Just as we were starting, I was thinking to myself, it feels like we haven't done a Thursday in a long time, but we did. We did a Thursday last week, and then I remembered, no, we did a short show last Thursday because we had a massive power outage. I don't think we've even had a chance to talk to you guys about this. We were just in the studio getting ready, and the entire building lost power for 2+ hours. It was craziness. We stuck around to do a very short interview with Milan Helm from We Rock the Spectrum in Austin, and because they had their opening and it was, it was a timely thing, and so we were thrilled that we were able to do that. Of course, we missed having our talk with Bonnie Yates, and we had another guest, and what can you do, right? We make plans and the universe laughs, right? But we're here now and it's Thursday and I've missed Thursdays, and we're going to be here next Thursday too, but then the week after we won't, because that is here in the United States, that is Thanksgiving, and so we won't be here on that Thursday. But in any case, we've got big stuff going on here. So wait till you see, because it's almost time for the Festival of Toys. In fact, we're going to debut that starting next week, and we've got a toy and gift guide for you that's coming out next week, fingers crossed. And we've got some award winners that we are going to be featuring here on the show. It's very exciting. I'm thrilled about the whole thing. And it always makes me feel all warm when we can start talking about toys. I would love to talk about toys all year long, but I have a feeling you guys would all want to smack me on the head. But I love it that you humor me in November and December, because toys are some of my favorite things. You know why? The ex-teacher in me knows, even before we started ABA, how much more fun it is if you can put fun and learning together. You're going to learn more and you have more fun. So very exciting. In any case, we're going to be with you live for the next 2 hours, power willing, right? And so we want you to participate with us. We want you to let us know what you're thinking, feeling, have questions. I know somebody has written in a question already this morning that we're going to get to in a little while. But so Samantha's going to show you some of the different ways that you can participate with us and be on board and have your voice heard here, and perhaps start a discussion, because I think that's more what we're looking to do all the time. Start a discussion that can maybe change lives. So Samantha's showing you some of the different ways you can connect, and I'm supposed to tell you that our homepage is autism-live.com. We have a new website that they're working on right now, and I can't wait to sometime early in 2018 we're going to unveil that, and you guys are going to tell us what you think. I think it's amazing. I'm really thrilled. But for now, go to autism-live.com, and it looks like my desktop. You can see it right there. It sort of looks like that. I mean, I can assure you that my desktop doesn't look anything like that at the moment. It looks more like Santa's elves exploded. And it's mayhem in there right now. But in any case, if you click on the triangle that's on the computer screen, you can be watching our live show or our most recently recorded live show. And if you want to look through the 100 most recent shows, you can do that in the upper left-hand corner. Click on the memo tab, and it's all there for you. Okay. We like to start every morning with, and before I get to that, let me say this, that I always like to remind you guys that we have lots of experts that are on the show. I'm not one of them, so just keep that in mind. But we like to start every morning, Thursday morning, with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym, and we try to make sense of what it is. So today's there it is, AAC. My Kipple, are you watching? Are you happy? AAC, which stands for Augmentative Assistive Communication. All right. So is that our actual definition? Let's go to our actual definition to take a look at what it says. It says a range of communication methods used to supplement or replace speech or writing for those with impairments in the production or comprehension of spoken or written language. Okay, well, all right. I guess I don't know if I like that definition or not, but let's move on to our working definition. Working definition, AAC includes all forms of communication other than vocal speech that are used to express thoughts, needs, wants, and ideas. So if we have somebody who can't vocally communicate, and remember that vocal communication and verbal communication, technically, if we're using the actual Skinner terms, are very different, right? Because if I just point, that's considered verbal behavior, quite honestly. But a lot of times we say a nonverbal child when we mean a non-vocal child, right? Same thing when we're saying a nonverbal adult. A lot of times we mean a non-vocal adult. And quite honestly, what we always want to work to is give whoever it is, child, adult, teenager, anybody, some form of functional communication. This way of getting your thoughts, your needs, your wants, and your ideas known, understood, and your needs met, right? So if you think about it, there are lots of different ways that you can do things to be able to be understood. I had said to you guys last week that we went 3 weeks ago, I guess now, we went and saw a performance of Our Town done by the Pasadena Playhouse in conjunction with Deaf Theater West. And I was struck over and over and over again, and I certainly have seen plays done before with sign language, both among the cast members and an interpreter. But really, this production just kept teaching me over and over and over again all the different ways that I could communicate with someone. That there were times when the actor was speaking and signing. There were times when an interpreter was speaking. There were times when, I mean, it just went back and forth. Every way possible that there was to communicate, they found a way. And sometimes there was just silent communication without signing, just an eyebrow that would go up, and the whole audience would get it in that moment, understand what was being said, and there would be laughter or a sigh or some reaction so that you knew 100% that the audience was getting all the communication that was happening. So sometimes when we talk about AAC, we're talking about technology. Sometimes we're talking about a Dynavox or something like that, that is a device that produces speech so that someone can type something in and it will speak for them. Sometimes we're talking about an iPad and perhaps software such as Proloquo, but there are many other programs, apps that we've covered here on the show that have different degrees of communication. And it's very interesting. I think this is all very present in my mind for a couple of reasons. One, for having gone and seen Our Town, but also because it's the time of year where, as a board member for Autism Care and Treatment Today, part of my job is to read through the grants, a portion of the grants. It's not my job to read through all of them, but a portion of the grants that come in. And I've been reading the technology grant applications, and it is fascinating to me the different ways that technology can be used to help individuals who are on the autism spectrum. And people from all over the United States have written in asking for a grant for different kinds of technology. Sometimes they're asking for a tablet and a specific software that they want on the tablet. Sometimes it's to help a person communicate. Sometimes it's a way to help them to learn so that they can do different apps and learn, and it doesn't necessarily have to do specifically with communication. Other times they're asking specifically for an iPad. And there's reasons why, specifically for our kids to have an iPad as opposed to a tablet. We keep hoping that the tablet side of things will catch up a little bit with the Apple products. They really haven't yet, and we have to be honest about that. It's more expensive to get the iPads, and I in some cases, depending on how the tablets are packed, and there are always things that you can put over a tablet. I have two different cases on tablets here. This one is infinitely more durable, and you can see that this one isn't because it's got tape on it, right? And when it comes to our kiddos on the spectrum, a lot of times we have to choose the more durable thing. It can be a lot more expensive with an iPad to have to protect it. But there is software that can run on the iPad in a way that we are not there yet on tablets. So depending on what the individual who's on the spectrum in your life needs, you want to look at those things. But there are so many other ways of communicating. Of course, there's PECs, and now there's PECs on devices, right? And it's fascinating to me that I love the fact that we haven't just said, oh, it has to be this one way for individuals who are on the autism spectrum, because there are so many ways in which they can communicate. In the deaf community, there are two very different prominent sign language communities. It's like two entirely different languages, and that can be confusing. I think it's probably necessary. Look at how many different languages we have. But I love that we haven't narrowed that down with autism, that we haven't said, oh, there's this way or there's this way, and that's the only way. So lots of different ways, but if you're a parent of a child, or you're a teacher of a student who is having difficulty communicating in any way, shape, or form. I mean, it may be that they have vocal speech, but that they socially aren't able in times of stress to express themselves, right? Or it may be that they don't have vocal speech. Giving that individual a way to communicate and making sure that they have the training to do it, and that the others around them have the training to accept the communication, it's life-changing. If you think about how would you tell people what you needed if you didn't have the vocal speech that you have. We're going to talk more about this in a minute, but AAC, really important. If your child does not, or your student doesn't have it, make sure that you're reaching out to find a way to give them a voice. It doesn't have to be expensive. There are lots of different ways to approach this, but being able to communicate is everything. That's our jargon for the day. Moving on, we always have a question of the day for you, and you'll see that everything goes hand in hand today. I'm asking you today, how many ways do you communicate your needs? And when you're thinking about this, it's also a great time to take stock and inventory and say, oh my gosh, like, am I using all the ways that I have at my disposal to communicate? Am I actually communicating my needs? Yesterday we had a big discussion. Dr. Grampiche told us the Sally Ann test, and we were talking about perspective taking. The truth of the matter is that a lot of us who do not have an autism spectrum diagnosis could sharpen our perspective taking skills. And that we could sharpen our conversation skills to repair conversations when we don't understand them. I have come to the realization in the last couple of years that I am incredibly rigid when it comes to communicating, that I say something and I think I'm being just like abundantly clear. And yet in today's world, there are a lot of people who just have no idea what I'm saying. And I find it very frustrating. I find this happens a lot at stores, that I will say something to somebody. I asked somebody a while back, I was like, do you have this and so product? And the person said, I'm trying to think exactly, well, we had them a week ago and they were on this end cap right here. And I said, okay, well, they're not here now. Do you know if there's someplace else, or do you not have them anymore? Are you completely sold out of them? Do you know what happened, right? Which is all these questions, and it's too many questions, quite honestly, for this person. And the person looked at me again and said, we had them a week ago, and they were right here on this end cap. To which I said, I hear you saying that to me. Am I supposed to infer from that that they're gone? Just tell me then if they're gone. Like I don't want to just, like, is it possible that they got moved some? But see, I keep asking more questions because I'm like, I'll find the one that works and I overload them, and then they go back to, we had them a week ago. And you'd think at some point I would go, I am not communicating effectively. But no. That would be too good. In any case, how many ways do you communicate your needs? And are there more ways that you could be communicating your needs? And do you communicate your needs enough? In any case, that's our question of the day. Our topic of the week, dun, 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 is working to strengths and working on weaknesses. This is something that somebody told me very early on when my son was diagnosed. They said, look, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take anything he's already good at, and we're going to play to those strengths, and we're just going to let him fly where that's concerned. But at the same time, we have to go and shore up and build up and work on all of his weaknesses. And they said to me, if you think about it, that's really what we should all be doing, right? It's just that so often when we have somebody who is on the autism spectrum, we get very zealous about working on the weaknesses, right? And so sometimes we forget to work to the strengths, to find the ways to feed those strengths. This is really uppermost in my mind because, as you know, if you were watching yesterday's show, on Saturday, we're going to be on the red carpet at a wonderful event that's being done by Autism Movement Therapy and Autism Works Now, our friend Joanne Lara. They're doing a tribute to Larry King, who's been so helpful to her organization. They're giving him an award. It happens to be his birthday. I don't know what number. I don't know that anybody knows which number. And they're also giving a Trailblazer Award to Dr. Temple Grandin. And Temple is going to be there. She's going to be on the red carpet. We will be with her on the red carpet, so you guys can watch all of that live. But if you know Temple's story, and we've got to have Temple's mother back on the show again soon. Eustacia Cutler is an amazing woman and so ahead of her time. When you look at the things that she did with Temple back in the 40s and the 50s that helped set Temple up for success. She looked at what Temple could do and what Temple loved, and she fed that. Man, she fed that as much as she possibly could. But she didn't let it just be that. She made sure that they were working on her weaknesses as well. So I think, it's a really hard balancing act all the time as a parent of knowing, when am I too much on this side? But I think it's always important to be walking the line between these two things and participating in both of them. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that today. But on the show today, we've got two amazing guests that are going to be joining us. In just a little while, we are going to have Bonnie Yates. And she's a special education attorney. She's an amazing mom, an autism mom. We don't talk about that very much, but she is. And an amazing autism mom. She's going to be talking with us. She comes to us from the law firm of Hirji and Chow, and she's going to be talking with us about bullying, what your rights are, what your child's rights are, what you can do when you feel like something is happening and maybe the school is underreacting. That's been my experience a few times, that what we feel like is bullying, the school goes, oh, I didn't see it. I don't know, whatever. So Bonnie's going to help us to do that. And then later on in the program, we've got Ned Sahin from Brain Power who's going to join us. We've had Ned on the show before. He's the genius behind the Google Glass for Autism, so otherwise known as Brain Power. So we're going to talk with him. We haven't talked to him in a while, and here he's got some amazing updates. We've been waiting for this product to be something that we can buy. Perhaps that's what he's going to tell us today. We're looking forward to talking with him. Plus, we've got your autism in the classroom moment and your mindfulness moment. All of that is coming up after these messages. Stick with us.
kids, welcome back to Smarty. For November, we're going to be working on memory with our kids, and what better way than doing a scavenger hunt. The materials you'll be needing for this activity are a camera, cardstock, scissors, glue, and whatever objects you want your child to be hunting for. Step 1, you're the hunter. Find all the objects you want your child looking for and take photos of them. Now that you've collected all the objects you want your kids hunting for later, print out the images and then cut them out and glue them on a cardstock just so they're organized and isolated. Now that the scavenger hunt template is done, put all the objects back where they belong. Remember, we're working on memory, so put them in places that your kids would normally find them. You want them to be successful. We'll make this one really easy to find. Well, I hope you enjoyed this activity with your kids. Remember, the scavenger hunt is supposed to be a fun way to work on memory. Well, until next time, craft on, guys.
Can you see me flying by your side?
Hello, fellow activists. In our last segment, we talked about step number 2, educate yourself. Step number 3 is get support. Now, any journey can feel overwhelming if you feel like you're walking it alone. Well, you're far from alone, because with 1 in 50 kids diagnosed with autism today, there are a lot of us out there. Of course, there's always the issue of financial support. Now, there's a handful of organizations out there that offer financial support to families in need. ACT Today, or Autism Care and Treatment Today, is one of them. Visit our website at www.act-today.org to find out more about our grant process. I want to talk about a different kind of support today, emotional support. Now, you can get that from other travelers on this path. Some of the best advice I've ever received is from the moms of other kids with autism who went to school with Wyatt or were involved with programs with him. Then there are the pioneers. These are the families that have gone through this years ago, and there was very little information out there. All of these people seem to have the desire to pay it forward. Now, one of them, Lisa Ackerman, who is one of my mentors, started an organization called TACA, Talk About Curing Autism. She actually took the concept of mentors and support groups and made it available to everybody. You can go to their website, talkaboutcuringautism.org, to find out more. During the first and most difficult year after Wyatt's diagnosis, I wrote an email to close family and friends, letting them know what was going on and the challenges our family was facing and why we dropped out of sight. I was amazed at the outpouring of love and affection and all the help I received from that email. First, you have to be vulnerable. You can't be afraid to ask. Try this out. Could you cook me a meal? Are you going to the market? Can you pick me up a few things? Could your kids play with my kid and make them feel included? Or can you come over and clean my house? Well, maybe not that last one, except with your best friend. And maybe the best support of all is having someone that listens, and that doesn't cost a dime. So until next time, surround yourself with the loving kindness of others and keep the faith.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We had some questions that came in on our YouTube channel. Somebody wrote in and said, can you touch on developmental delays? Our school district seems to think my daughter may have this on top of her autism because she is way behind for her age. She's 8 years old and testing much younger. I feel her delays are part of her autism and not separate. She's very smart, but I feel the delay may be that something else is missing educationally. She has OT, speech, and we just started this year with parent-based ABA therapy session 1 time per week. I'm looking into center-based ABA. Okay, great question. And this comes up a lot because when we start to talk about developmental delays, and sometimes they'll say global developmental delays, of course people get concerned because I don't know about you, but when my child was diagnosed with autism, I wanted to know, and we've done a segment before on, I hate saying the R word, but there are places in which the R word is still applicable and still a medical term. But for years, we use the term mentally retarded, right? We don't like to use that term, but I'm going to use it just this once. We tend not to use that anymore. We tend to say intellectual disability, right? And I wanted to know first, what's the difference between that and autism? Because everybody was acting as if my child had just been diagnosed with both. And I honestly didn't know, did it mean that my child had both of those issues going on? And then we'll talk about, is intellectual disability the same as developmental delays? Because it's not. So there's these 3 different gradations of things going on, right? First of all, when you have a child who has autism, they are going to get behind. It is just a fact. And every day that we aren't treating them and helping them to shore up those weaknesses that we were just talking about, they will continue to get behind. Imagine, you probably have had this happen in your life sometime before where something happens. Let's say, a loved one dies and, there's all the things that come with the funeral and all of those things. And you find yourself in a slice of time just taken out of time, right? Where you're just dealing with other things. You're not driving to work. You're not listening to the radio. You're not watching the news. You hear a little bit of stuff that's going on, but you're so focused on other things that you're really not attending to it, right? So stuff gets by you. And then like a week or 2 or a month later, somebody says, oh, well, this country got invaded. And you go, it did? Where was I? What happened then? Like, I don't know about that, right? And it feels weird. It feels like, oh, I missed time. Same thing if a loved one goes in the hospital. Sometimes you miss time because you're not soaking in all the things that you normally soak in. Well, for our kids who are, sometimes developing normally, sometimes even not developing normally, there's all these things that happen around a 1-year-old, a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, that kids that aren't having to deal with other issues just soak up. They just soak up and they pick up all these things. One of the biggest things that they pick up is language. And for our kids, they're focused on other things. They're outside of time and they're dealing with, big noises and things that are happening to them and focusing on that, or running away inside from that, right? Fuzzing out from everything because it's too much. So they're missing all of that input. So by the time we realize it, we go, uh-oh, they're behind. And it takes a while for us to realize, and we have to forgive ourselves for that, all of us. Even for the doctors, it takes a while to notice, oops, they're behind. Then we have to play catch up as fast as we can. Now, if the child is 18 months and they've lost 3 months, we can catch 3 months up in a fairly quick time, right? But if the child is 7, then there's that much more that they've missed, and that's going to take significantly longer. And I think you said that your child is 8. So if the child has not had real substantive therapy that has been shown to be effective, and really, we're really talking about ABA there. There are a couple of other things that can be effective at goals, but nothing like as comprehensive as ABA. So if your child is 8 and has not had ABA, then they are definitely going to be behind. And for the school district, they're going to look at that and they're going to decide that it's probably forever. And I'm going to encourage you not to buy into that. The task before you is larger, and everybody's going to let you know. So I'm going to let you know now, it's larger than it would have been if you had been able to have ABA at 5 or ABA at 3, okay? But that's just a letting yourself know, oh, okay, we've got some work to do. But no one in the universe there's no stasis. There's nothing that has just stasis and isn't capable of making progress. So your child absolutely can progress. And I love that you're having a parent-based ABA therapy session. I am not loving that it's just 1 time a week. And I really want to encourage you that when a child is 3, we say 40 hours a week of ABA And that's separate from any school that's happening. 40 hours of ABA, separate from any speech or OT. 40 hours of ABA. I know it sounds overwhelming. And at 8, you just can't do 40 hours because they've got so many other things. They have to go to school and they have to do other things. Although we have had some parents who have pulled their kids out of school and said, no, we're going to do 40 hours of ABA intensively because we may never have this opportunity again. And guess what? Those kids make tremendous leaps. It takes a whole lot of gumption and support to be able to do something like that, but it is an option. But even if you can't do that, I really want to encourage you. It's great that you're getting training, but it's got to be more than 1 hour. Like, it's got to be all the time, anytime that they're not in school. And I really want to encourage you, you got to get the school on board with giving her some substantive goals. I don't have my little placard that sits over here. Eliana is going to just be so mad at me, my skills thing. I moved it, but I want to recommend Skills to you. Skills is an amazing online tool that will help you to first, there's the website for it. It'll first help you to assess where your child is right now, and it'll show you on a graph where your child ideally should be at this age and where they are now. And then as your child learns, you see the graph go up. It will show you where your child's strengths are. It will show you where their weaknesses are. And then it gives you the lessons that go hand in hand with the assessment. So it'll recommend and it'll say, here's all the lessons. You can't do them all at once. Which one do you want to work on first? And so if you need to know how to teach the lessons, some of them, they all come with teaching tips, but you really, I want to encourage you for the harder things to do more parent training on IBT, which is the Institute for Behavioral Training. But as many hours as you can. Pick, there are specific milestones for the academic world during the year. I would focus on those during the year, and in the summer, just get her caught up on everything that you possibly can. Intensive. As much ABA as you guys can afford and stand. You don't say what school district you're in or what state you're in. You don't have to tell me which school district, but if I just knew which state, a lot of times there's only 7 states left that don't have a mandate where they wouldn't pay for the ABA. So odds are you live in a state where they do have that and it would get paid for, but you have to be advocating for more than the hour. For an 8-year-old, I mean, if you want to get her caught up, you're going to need to get funding for at least 20 hours a week. At least, I would say 25. And if you can push it to 30, and if you can do extra so that every waking moment, but you will see that you can catch her up on a lot of things. You might spend the rest of your lives getting caught up on everything, but you don't need everything, right? Get her caught up on the things that are substantive. Now back to when schools start to say, oh, developmental delays. For them, it's, a lot of times it's used synonymously with saying that your child has an intellectual disability. And when we're talking about intellectual disability, and I know this from being a teacher, the feeling is we're still going to teach this child, but the expectation of what they're going to be able to get to, that they're going to hit a wall, and that it's too taxing for them to push further than that. And the thing with autism is that it is not fair to assume that. There are tests that you can have done that can help to show exactly if there's any kind of a thing that would prevent her from making huge progress. But I always say to people, we don't really know. That's really sketch. When my son was diagnosed, no one could tell me that he was going to be able to be verbal. He was considered moderate to severe, and no one could tell me that he was going to be able to live independently. And there were people who were telling me that he couldn't and wouldn't, and of course, we know that that's all false. I can't give you any guarantees. Because we know that some people are more profoundly affected with autism, and that catching up at a certain point, we realize, catching up for everyone, it's not about that. It's about what do they need right now, and then focusing on that. I have seen people make progress that was huge and substantive in their 30s. So we're never giving up, but especially at 8. It is way too early to decide, oh, we should go easy on her. Absolutely get as much ABA as you can. I hope that that helped you to understand and clarify that a little bit. Don't just trust the school, honestly. Now, we had another question that came in that a friend who I haven't heard from in a while says, is it true that children who have been in ABA type programs are more susceptible to abuse due to the fact that they are generally not allowed to say no or object, even if something feels uncomfortable to them? It's a great question, and I'm glad that you asked it. If it's quality ABA, and if ABA is done really well, then no. It would not make them more likely and more susceptible to abuse due to the fact that they would not be allowed to say no. Because I can tell you that my son had the best top quality ABA from CARD, and I watched it all on a monitor, or as much of it as I could, because sometimes it was my husband there watching it. And my son was taught specifically how to say no. Now, there's a very specific thing, because there are times in ABA when we don't allow a child to escape, but they're taught not to escape things that are like not doing their homework, and they can say no, but they have to ask for a break, and then they can take a break, right? So that's the difference. We give them skills to be able to say, I can't do this right now, or this doesn't feel right, but that they have to find a way to communicate that either through an iPad or through text or through PECS or through vocal language or through sign language. We give them a way to communicate that. So I know it's a dicey thing, but having watched it, I can tell you that I feel like my son, having been through a good ABA program, is 100 times less likely to have any of those things happen. There was a danger program that was run with him that was so extensive that at one point, first we did a practice run where we went to a Target. We told the manager we're going to be doing this. I was with him and his therapist, and we were in an aisle, and we had already told him at some point, Mommy's going to go away, and then you're going to have to remember all the things that you've been taught to find her. So he knew that that was going to happen. And so I walked away from him. The therapist was still with him. She prompted him when needed to. He went to the desk. It was so cute because he said to the person behind the desk, can you please page my mom? I think she's lost. Not that he was lost, that I was lost. And of course, I was hiding behind the shopping carts and was like, I'm right here. And I still cried. But then they take it a step further, and I had to be kept at home. I was actually in the middle of a radio show, but they wouldn't let me come. So I was at home doing a radio show while my husband took him, and we didn't tell him that my husband was going to walk away from him. And there were 5 therapists positioned around the store so that there were always people that had eyes on him. He didn't know any of those therapists, but there were 5 people who had eyes on him. I think they even had camera so that he couldn't be in any danger, because I was like, what if a bad person comes right then? But so that he was left by himself, and a therapist that he'd never met came up to him and attempted to talk to him, and he'd been taught all these techniques of saying, you're a stranger, get away from me, and running to find a person in a uniform and saying to them, that man is a stranger and I don't know him. So no, I don't think that a good ABA program leaves our kids at danger for this. And even in therapy sessions, when my son would raise an objection, he was always taught that he had an out, that he could say, I need a break, and that was always, always, always listened to. So I think it's such a good question, and I'm so glad that you asked, because I think a lot of times people are afraid of that. Well, if I teach compliance, then my child will be a danger for predators. But you see, compliance taught well teaches a child to do things that get them a reward from people they know, not from people they don't know. And in fact, you teach compliance that when a stranger asks you to do that thing, that's a stranger, and they're taught exactly what stranger danger is and who a stranger is. So, and it's not compliance just for compliance sake. It's compliance because it's meaningful to them, and that's what ABA does. That's really well received and well done. In any case, how much time do I have now? Do I have time to do? Oh, okay, so I've got a couple of minutes. Why don't we do mindfulness? Because now's a good time. We got ourselves all hepped up talking about safety issues and things like that. But we have to talk about them. But mindfulness, why do we talk about mindfulness? Because when the stress and the anxiety comes up, there are lots of different things that we can do, right? And you can medicate that and numb it down, right? But it's better to resort to mindfulness. We know statistically that it works better at handling the anxiety. So today I want to talk about what's the soundtrack playing in your head. And if you think about this, we talked yesterday about a little boy who was saying that he heard a voice inside him say, "Don't eat it." And we all have a voice inside. Sometimes we have many voices inside. Sometimes we have an orchestra inside. And what we are saying to ourselves inside really affects how the movie plays outside, right? It really is the soundtrack to our lives, what we're thinking and what we're hearing on the inside. And one of the things that I find really interesting is that behaviorists for years have only talked about stuff on the outside. And in the last 10, 15, 20 years, some behaviorists have been talking more about what's on the inside, what your thought process is. Dr. Grampiche was talking about this yesterday. It's the cognition piece of the puzzle sometimes for autism and for real life. And you'll see that more and more people are talking about this. Eckhart Tolle did a whole mindfulness series on Oprah Winfrey about this very thing, about what are the voices that are inside you, what exactly is that and how much should you attend to it? Lots of theories here, but I think if you can just have control over the soundtrack in your life, what an amazing thing, right? That at any given moment, it's like a radio tuner and you get to decide what it is that you're going to listen to. I find it fascinating because a lot of time mine's playing very low level in the back of my brain. And that sometimes I have, a song that'll just be in the back of my brain. And if I bring it to the forefront, I find that often it has to do with whatever is happening. Kind of like Paul Schaefer used to do on the David Letterman show, that a guest would come out and he would play a song that had some sort of connection to who the guest was. And I always thought that was really clever. And I find that my brain does that sometimes, that I'll be hearing something in the back of my head that goes along with whatever is happening, But for you, remember that it could be music that plays in the soundtrack of your mind, and it could be any music you want, your favorite song, right? And it can change, and you can just inform it to change, or it can be phrases and things that you say. And remember that, it seems very clear, and people have done studies on this, that what you think becomes what you do, becomes how you experience everything. So if it all starts with what you think and you have control over the dial, are you setting your life to the right soundtrack? If what you say to yourself is negative, and believe me, we all do at some point, right? Can we change the dial to a different channel and listen to a different song? Because chances are, even though whatever it is negative that you may want to say about yourself, I'll fess up here that a lot of my negative speak is, about my weight. Oh my gosh, can I go there in my head? And left to my own devices, it could be that that's all there is to me, is the number on the scale that I don't like, right? But obviously I have other redeeming factors. You know what I'm saying? And I can change the dial to that and say, well, you know, I didn't do so good on this, but I've done better on other things. And that's a better way, that's a better channel to listen to. So what are you listening to? What's on the soundtrack of your life, and what would you like it to be? Be your own concert promoter. Be the person who decides what is on that channel, and have something happy and joyous play on the soundtrack of your life, even if it's just for the next 5 minutes, or if it's for the next day or the next 5 days. See what it's like. Change the tune. We're out of time for that. Let's take a quick break because we want to get Bonnie Yates on the show with us. Stick with us.
Hi, I'm Yvonne Johansson, and this is My Little House.
My Little House is an interactive, multi-sensory educational felt toy that I invented to help develop children's language skills.
I love My Little House.
I've been working as a speech therapist for over 20 years. I have spent my entire career working with young children. I work with children with language delays, and I have many children with significant cognitive disabilities and children on the autism spectrum. It has been a constant challenge finding toys that are fun, educational, and actually engage my students. In every preschool, since I've been a young therapist, we carry on these felt boards. Kids love them because they're soft and they're fluffy, and there's usually these little pieces that attach to these boards because felt sticks onto felt. You bring them into the activity because they're putting a piece on the board. So it's almost kind of like magic. So then I just thought, wouldn't it be great if I could just take this one-dimensional board and make it into an actual three-dimensional toy? How cool would that be?
That's the idea behind My Little House. You can spread it out flat like a 4-panel felt board, or here's the cool part. In the blink of an eye, My Little House easily converts into a 3-dimensional reversible house.
This is the outside. This is the inside.
My Little House comes with 36 felt cutout pieces that match outlines in 8 colorful rooms. And they're felt, so they stick. Each piece inside My Little House has been placed with purpose.
For instance, in the kitchen, whole, half, under, on top, inside, big, bigger, and biggest, empty and full, circle, triangle, inside, outside.
Really cool thing, I have a nonprofit, Lecotech. They are the folks that put out the Differently Abled Guide for Toys R Us. They've been doing it for 25 years. They gave me their seal of approval as a toy that they feel is a toy with purpose, and that will make a difference. But My Little House isn't just for kids on the spectrum or with significant disorders. It's also for typically developing 2 to 5-year-olds. It's a fun toy.
Oh, this is so soft. That piece goes.
Recently, I took My Little House to the American Speech and Hearing Association convention in Philadelphia, and the response from my peers was overwhelming. Hundreds of therapists, teachers, and heads of school districts wanted to order them.
It was real validation for me that this truly is a toy that needs to get out there.
Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod. I'm a proud autism mom, I'm a former educator, and I am the host of Autism Live. And as all 3 of those things, I want to recommend to you My Little House. This is one of the smartest toys I have ever seen for teaching language to kids who have emerging language. Whether they're on the autism spectrum or completely neurotypical, it's a great, fun, reinforcing toy, but it's especially great for our kids that are on the autism spectrum because it makes learning fun and it makes it tactile. They have these felt shapes and they get to match them up. And I'm telling you, even the adults love to play with this. We loved this toy so much that we wanted to be able to bring it to you at a great discount. So right now, if you will go to www.smartfelttoys, and when you get to the coupon code, put in a-live.com, you'll get $5 off. Isn't that great? So I want to encourage you, go and get My Little House for all the kiddos in your life.
I know a cute little blue-eyed boy, and his name is Jack.
Jack Riley.
He got a big, warm, blue-eyed soul that makes your heart beat fast.
At 9:00, you go potty, and then you can have the iPod after you go potty.
First, we have to go. No, later we can go party.
If you do it really fast with no crying, you can play with the iPod,
Again.
okay? But if you cry and you do it slow, no iPod. All right? He has to use the bathroom with no behaviors and do it really, not really fast, but in a good amount of time versus lagging and crying and tantruming and prolonging what he has to do. And if he does it quickly and fast, he gets his reinforcer. If he doesn't, then he doesn't get his reinforcer, so he learns. We're hoping he learns it the next time. If he does it quick with no behaviors, then he gets what he wants every time. So we're gonna try to go past that hump, like you did with everything else, like the feeding, and if you remember that, and the safety and the walking outside, like all of that. So this is just a little bump in the road. I think will be cool. So we'll see how that goes today. Hopefully it'll go good. It's 9 o'clock. Let's see if we can do it fast, and then you can have the iPod. Let's do it.
There you go. Does somebody get to play iPod?
Yeah.
Yay! Hey, did you do the potty with no crying?
No.
No crying, right? And did you do it fast or slow? Fast. Yay! So what do you get?
iPod.
Yay! I hear someone. Hi. Who is it?
Hi, Diana.
Hi. What brings you here today, Diana?
I just wanted to come and see Jack Riley and make sure everything was going smoothly.
And how often does that happen?
I try to come out and see Jack Riley once a month during a home session.
You're playing with the iPad.
I have to make sure I get all your learning stuff in here.
I made a jack-o'-lantern.
I'm gonna
No, what'd you make?
Elephant.
You made an elephant! So cool, Jack. Yeah, so with Mom and Dad, the bathroom occurrence with behavior just still happening. But we did it with Dad today. It was a lot better.
Dad did it? Okay, good.
But nonetheless, it still happens when we're not here. So I was thinking maybe we can fade ourselves out and just be outside the bathroom.
How much prompting does he need to actually get through, like the motions? Is it getting through the motions or is it just the behaviors?
Yeah. He can do everything
He can do
by
it.
himself.
Are you doing that nicely or not nicely?
Doing it nicely.
I don't think so. You're crying. So are you doing it nicely or not very nicely?
Not very nice.
Yeah. When you wash your hands, should you be crying or not crying? You know what? I want you to show me how you wash your hands nicely. Okay? Let's go.
That was so much better. Jack Riley, that was awesome. That was so good.
Do you want to go sit down? Yeah. Okay. No crying when you're going potty. Okay? Are we going to work on it? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, good.
That's it.
I know, that's the point. That's the point. Again? So let's play with that. So let's take videos of him going potty. Well, it'll kind of be a baseline. So if he cries, if he gets upset, review the video with him afterwards. And then talk to him about if it was nicely or not nicely, and then try again.
Okay.
And we can keep reviewing the videos.
You may have noticed that we were gone a little bit longer than normal because we were attempting to get Miss Bonnie Yates on the Skype, and the Skype was not cooperating. So there we have it. So we have her on the phone, so you will hear her voice. Welcome, Bonnie.
Thank you.
We're thrilled.
Sorry.
And we apologize profusely because last week we missed our opportunity to talk to you all together because of a massive power outage in the building. And even after the power came back on, the rolling way that things, you just don't realize how much you rely on power. And when you have to reset things and replug in everything, it was a nightmare. So we apologize to Bonnie. We apologize to you guys that we weren't able to bring you Bonnie last week. As you know, if you watch the show, Bonnie joins us from Hirji and Chow, an amazing law firm. And Bonnie, I'll let you talk about them and give us your disclaimer.
All right, so let's see. Hirji and Chow, the phone number is 310-391-0330. We're on the web. We're a special education and disability discrimination law firm. We're based in Southern California. The answers we give to your questions on this show are given under California law or federal law, because IDEA is federal, and so it applies similarly in many of the 50 states. Anyway, if you have a question that really needs a specific answer to your specific facts, I would always recommend you contact a lawyer in your own state. So with that said, I came in, this is, what we were going to present you last week. So I came in about a week ago, and Rosa said to me, "We've just won, 3 big things and nobody knows about it." And I said, well, I can change that.
Yeah.
So I was going to talk about a couple of the big wins. And one of the big wins had to do with a temporary restraining order, which we got in a case where the school district had actually gone into court and gotten a restraining order against the family.
Yeah,
and now
shocking.
I realize that's on my computer, all my notes about that. So I'm gonna pull that up. But while I'm doing that, let me just tell you a little bit about the background facts. This was a school district that was really, really motivated to stick it to these parents. It's in a rural desert community. I don't think that, parents have a child with a disability. She's a wonderful girl. She's very, very smart. She has some dyslexia, but probably more pressing for her is she has a medical condition where her body produces too much ammonia and too much insulin, the opposite of what you're used to seeing. Mm-hmm. And so she has to have opportunities to use the restroom whenever she needs to. She has to be able to have water on demand, and she has to be able to have snacks on demand to regulate her blood sugar.
Yeah.
And parents went in at the beginning of the year, and they kind of laid all this out for the teacher, and the teacher didn't like it. The teacher didn't like the fact that the student had to be on a different schedule, and the student was allowed to eat in class and drink in class when other people weren't. And so the parents got into it with the teacher. I mean, it was just off to
as you would, as any reasonable person would. It's, I personally feel like these are not big asks. I feel like all kids in school should have access to the bathroom, should have access to water, and if they need a snack, should have access to a snack. That it wouldn't be a big ask for anybody, but for this young girl, it's a matter of life and death. And
well, that's an important point, and more to the point in a way. I visited this wonderful nursery school about 2 weeks ago. That's a developmentally appropriate nursery school for children with autism, and I didn't know whether to cry or hug everybody. It's just the most wonderful thing that I've seen in a long time, and it really raised my spirits because I think a lot of the time in special ed we just settle for what there is. But anyway, one of the things we discussed at this school interview, because the woman that runs the school is so well studied in terms of different educational philosophies, is she said, people don't really understand the reason that children have to line up in school, that they all have to sit in their desks, they all have to go to the bathroom at the same time. And she said that really came out of kind of the Horace Mann school of thought, which was to prepare people to be good workers in the new economy. Yeah. So there was an element in this case of the teacher being very irritated because she had to accommodate this young lady. And of course she did have to accommodate her, because if her ammonia levels get too high or her insulin levels get too high, it has drastic, immediate physical consequences for her. So she's a lovely girl and a delicate flower, and she has to be accommodated in that way. But she's not a behavior problem. She's a great asset to the classroom. So anyway, I've found my brief now, and what happened is at a certain point, the teacher asked for a restraining order because she said the parents were harassing her and threatening her. And I read the transcript of the hearing for the permanent restraining order, and there was just a lot of stuff in there that the judge said that made him sound like kind of a country bumpkin, kind of like curbside justice kind of guy. Yeah. And Rosa said, I don't think that's an appropriate order, that these people have to stay away from the teacher, 100 yards away from the teacher for 3 years. But anyway, of course, once the court issued the temporary restraining order, the parents said, well, we can't possibly have our child in a school where we can't come in and give her food or water or medication when she needs it. So they were able to move her to a different district. And usually what happens in these situations is people just drop these things for obvious reasons because their lives are very busy and other things take precedent. But these parents didn't feel that way. And I'm getting a little ahead of myself. At a certain point, the parents felt like the teacher was also retaliating against their daughter by giving her a really hard time about her homework, singling her out in class. And so they went and they complained to the principal. They made what's called a Williams complaint, which, you can make at the school level. And after that, it was just like game on. The teacher went out on maternity leave. And then she had her baby, and her baby was born with a heart defect. And her claim, which is so implausible medically, was that the parents' actions had caused her child to have a birth defect. Yeah. And that's when she went in and got this temporary restraining order, which is, I think it's only for 90 days, and then the court revisits the issue and decides if they're going to grant a permanent restraining order. So that's what happened. They got a permanent restraining order, and the case, Rosa filed a lawsuit, and she lost the lawsuit in district court. But then she went on beyond district court, and she litigated it. And so even though the trial court had found that the teacher had met her burden of proof by clear and convincing evidence, which is like more than 50%, 51%, the parents had engaged in conduct which is found to be civil harassment, and required the parents to stay away from the teacher, that wasn't what happened with the appeal. So the appeal question was, had the teacher made a satisfactory showing regarding the harassment, and whether the teacher hadn't shown proof of great or irreparable harm. And so the court basically reviewed the order and discussed the legal standard and said there was insufficient evidence to support the restraining order. So there was no showing that the parents had engaged in actual violence toward the teacher and her family, nor was there evidence of a credible threat of violence. And they said, screaming on the phone, which the dad had done on one occasion, may be rude, but it did not demonstrate that the conduct was threatening. And the court went on to say, losing your temper does not equal a threat of physical harm.
I love. Didn't it say at one point, Bonnie? Because you sent it to me and I read it. I thought at one point it said that being annoying is not the same thing as being threatening. That's what I walked away and I thought, well, now I'm glad somebody put that in writing, because I'm sure that a lot of autism parents, myself including, can be very annoying.
Right. Well, and we have told parents before, IDEA doesn't protect you against educational malpractice. It really does. but this mom had been a federal agent, and an FBI agent, and one of the claims was that she had told the teacher that she was gonna, use her FBI skills to bring the mom down, and the court found that there wasn't sufficient evidence.
Because she said it like to another mom. She didn't say it to the actual teacher, if I remember correctly.
Well, it was unclear. It was unclear what she said to the actual teacher, because the teacher said she said certain things and the mom said other things. But the point was that the court said that, trying to get the teacher removed, which is very much what the parents were doing with that Williams complaint, doesn't constitute the kind of threat. Yeah. It's not a credible threat of violence. And so...
Well, and it can't cause your child to have a heart defect.
Well, that's a whole other issue that the court didn't even really get into, and I can see why. But what the court did say is, here's a case where there was a credible threat. The dad tried to have a discussion with the teacher and raised his voice at her, and then put his fist in her face, and then put his fingers in the shape of a gun and held it by her face, and stood so close she could feel his breath. And he backed away and reapproached several times, and he believed he was going to hit her. And the officer who viewed the tape thought she wasn't safe. And the vice principal testified that he was afraid that the father would become physical with the teacher. So here, the parents' activities were sufficient to cause the teacher emotional distress, but it had a legitimate purpose to ensure the child's well-being in class. So Rosa Hirji meticulously litigated this case, and I thought that's really super cool. Like, she had this idea, she had this vision, and she like connected all the dots. So that was Rosa's first big win last week. The other big win I wanted to tell you about, because it's something we don't really discuss, which is what happens to the cases after due process.
Yeah.
And Rosa Hirji and Jenny Chow did this case in 2014, and it's not often that things go this way. I don't want you to conclude that most cases take this long to play out, but I did want to tell you about this one, and I think we sent it to you, Shannon, last week, the OAH number for people.
Yes.
So you can make that available to them. They can read it.
Okay. But I wasn't sure if that's something that had to be private.
There's no names on it. There's no names. It's sanitized. Okay. But anyway, so in this case, Rosa and Jenny filed the due process in September of 2014, and then the district turned around and filed against them on the grounds that their assessment was appropriate. And so that was, as I said, in September 2014. By the time everybody did this and did that, there's always a lot of back and forthing, and things get continued. The hearing didn't start until May, till the end of May. And these poor women were in hearing for the 26th, the 27th, the 28th, the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th, the 16th, and the 18th. And in order to do that, they basically had to move to the school district because it was not possible to go home every day at the end of the day. So they didn't get their decision on the case until August 3rd, 2015, and the court wrote a 36-page opinion about why the family prevailed on the 4 issues that Rosa and Jenny filed on. Well, that was super cool, because a lot of the time in these decisions, you get like a mixed decision with split results. So I sort of assumed with that kind of a win, what would happen is the district would then agree to pay their attorney's fees. But not this district. The lawyer had, I think, a very personal stake in the matter. She had been really difficult to deal with during the hearing itself. And so rather than settle the attorney's fees, which is normally what should happen, you should file a complaint, and then the district should say, enough is enough. We don't want to end up in the situation of having to pay fees for collecting fees, and they should settle. Yeah. But that's not what happened here. Instead, they got totally stonewalled. And so what I sent to Shannon, at least I think I sent it to Shannon, wasn't very long. It's just a 2-page order. But what went into this, I mean, they were ordered, this was October 2017, they were ordered to pay $274,000.75 in attorney's fees. And some of that is parents and some of that is Hirji and Chow's. But the point is, that case started probably in 2013, and it's an extreme situation. But what it shows you is that the district plays a delay game at every level, at the IEP, at the due process, post-due process, and you got to stick to your guns, which is something Rosa and Jenny are really good at. And they didn't let themselves be intimidated by these people trying to paper them to death so they would give up. And the end result is, what I told you. So that was big win number 2. And I can't even remember what big win number 3 was, but, they're like knocking them out of the park. So that's pretty exciting because, a parent attorney in special ed, you lose more than you win. The system is really not favorable to parents. It's really, the district has a lot of advantages that the parents don't have. So it's really super sweet when notwithstanding all of those obstacles, people just kind of like push on through, and we all have to try to push on through in these situations. So,
remarkable.
Those were the 2 big wins.
Remarkable. I absolutely love that. And I love the fact that so often we talk about on the show here that everybody's reticent to go get a lawyer because, automatically it feels like, I'm going down that path and I'm being combative and they're going to take it out on my kid and it's going to cost me a bunch of money. There are all these negative reasons why we think, I don't want to go to a lawyer. When in fact, a lot of the times, tell me if I'm wrong here, Bonnie, but a lot of what you're doing is negotiating things so that you don't have to get things to this point where you're in court with a judge and things taking years and years and years. That the vast majority of what you guys do is try to nip things before they get that far, right?
Right. I mean, that's always my goal because I don't, splashy legal decisions are less important than getting kids services ASAP.
Exactly.
But in this situation, first of all, the client really got it. Like the client really had the big picture in terms of what was being attempted. And the majority of those fees, $274,000 or whatever I said, 270 something.
Yeah.
That represents work that the law firm did on the contingency.
Yeah.
In other words, over 4 years, assuming the risk that the call that they made about the case was the right case, and it was. And I sent the case. I think I sent the case to you, Shannon.
Yes.
Because I wanted parents to have an opportunity to read it and see all the ways in which the district stepped in it with this kid.
Yeah.
And basically, because he was able to finish high school in the Fusion Center-based program, he's now in college, and some of his difficulties are behind him. And our kids are, this population of kid that has a normal or high IQ and has emotional issues, they're very vulnerable in high school.
Yes.
But they're also protectable. They need a different kind of environment, and they need frontal lobe maturation time.
Absolutely.
So,
and I've already sent that. I sent the case to Samantha so she can post it for our viewers on Facebook of the whole case. But I also wanted to say too, Bonnie, that when I love hearing about these wins that you guys have had, because I love it for you guys that you got the win and that you were so diligent and what that means for that family. But I also know what it means for the rest of us, that becomes a precedent. And that trickles down to the rest of us, that the next time that somebody is in a battle with that particular school district, they're not going to run to have the same result. Maybe they'll be willing to solve things a little bit earlier. And maybe, the next time that you guys, I'm sure that people, when Hirji and Chow is arguing a case now, school districts are going to pay a little bit more attention because you guys have shown yourselves to be thorough.
Yeah, I mean, I think unfortunately people interpret what I consider to be healthy collaboration as a sign of weakness. One of the things you have to do in every situation, I go in with the presumption that, that people are decent and they want to be good human beings, but you got to really watch how they handle things. And, unfortunately, if they start bullying you at the very beginning of the meeting, you have to stand up to the bully. You have to give them the correction. And it feels mean and uncomfortable. But if you don't do that, you'll never have control in the meeting.
Yeah.
So anyway, different lawyers on the other side are better and worse to work with. This one was very, very difficult. And we had a subsequent issue with another parent who didn't do her reimbursements right, meaning she paid for stuff that was arguably within the settlement agreement, but arguably outside the settlement agreement. And this lawyer, because I think she was unhappy about what happened in the WS case, she just stuck it to this mom.
Wow.
So anyway, stuff happens, right?
Right. But these are wins. We're going to count them in the win column for Hirji and Chow, for these families, and I think for all of us to some extent. But remarkable. So now it's next week that we're going to take on bullying. Is that what
next week we're going to take on something. I have to figure out where this alleged Rosa's done a lot of work on the bullying issues, and I just want to get a hold of what she's done already and not reinvent the wheel. But do we have any time to quickly touch on some other things, or do these things get saved for next week?
No, we can touch on a couple of things. We can do another 4 or 5 minutes.
Okay,
if you've got the time, I'll make the time.
Let me just hit a couple things that I think will come up. I think your listeners have probably heard us use the term statute of limitations.
Yeah.
And in special education, and indeed in all law practice, the statute of limitations is a very important issue, and I realize I haven't really explained it to parents how it works in special education. So in the state of California, the state law is that you have 2 years from the date of the district doing something actionable, i.e. refusing to assess, doing an inappropriate assessment, offering an inappropriate placement, writing inappropriate goals and objectives. You have 2 years from the date of that event to file for due process. So if you have an IEP on November 1st, 2017, you can't raise issues that happened at that due process after November 1st, 2019.
Wow.
So part of our process when the cases come in is we get all the records and we look at what events are still in play. And we want to make sure that we don't lose IEPs or events, and that to some extent dictates when we file, and sometimes it forces us to file before we're really ready, in which case we have ways of dealing with that. But there really aren't too many exceptions to the statute of limitations requirements in California. But there is this thing called child find. And if there's a situation where the district should have found somebody eligible earlier than they did, which was certainly an issue in that WS case that we were discussing, you may be entitled to compensatory services that go back 2 years. So let me explain what I mean. Let's say a student has had mental health issues for the last 18 months and the school district is on notice about them. But it's only in the last 2 months that the school district has assessed the student and offered him an IEP with a FAPE. Okay, in theory then, the district wouldn't have any liability because the IEP was too new and the placement was too new and it was unclear how the student would do. If the argument is that the district should have been able to find the student, figure out that he had special needs, and come up with a plan for how to service those needs, then you can ask for compensatory education that goes back beyond the date of that initial IEP. So I know that's a little confusing,
So-
but this is why, even if somebody hasn't had an IEP and the district's been trying to manage them with a 504 plan, we'll go back and look and see what the district knew or should have known, and we may be able to argue for a longer limitation period. And there are only 2 exceptions to this 2-year statute of limitations. It's going to be very hard to get the hearing office to go back, to allow an exception. But here's how they roll. One is specific misrepresentations by the local educational agency that it had resolved the problem, forming the basis of the complaint. Or 2, the local education agency's withholding of information from the parent that was required under this part of the IDEA was required to be provided to the parent. So you're really going to have to show fraud, concealment, something pretty significant.
Or negligence?
No, I don't know. I think that this is an intentional misconduct. I don't think it's negligence.
If it's a thing though, Bonnie, where we see that the child was having difficulties 2 years ago and they just didn't order an assessment, wouldn't that be negligence? And wouldn't that come under this heading as well, or no?
Well, if the district should have assessed 2 years previously and they didn't, you only have 2 years to raise that claim. And so if you go beyond the 2 years, you're out of luck, unfortunately.
Okay.
So that's why these statutes of limitations are important. And I don't expect, quote unquote, lay parents to understand all of this, but it's important to know that the more months, up to 24 months of violations and failure to offer FAPE the parent has, the stronger and more winnable their case is. And so if you're sitting around and letting your IEPs stack up, you need to be mindful of the fact that probably because you haven't had legal counsel, something bad has happened in that 2-year time. And probably since you're not an attorney, you don't know what that is, and you don't want to give that stuff back to the district. I have a kiddo, we're still fighting this one out, but the prior lawyer convinced the mom to waive claims up through last summer. And unfortunately, the problem was in the waiver time period, her son had been attacked at the school on 2 occasions by another student. And that all went, all that and the subsequent terrible home hospital services all went bye-bye because of the waiver.
Wow.
So that's why we want you to start thinking about what's your case worth, and when is it going to start being worth less if you don't take action on it.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. All right.
Okay, so do we have time to do the private school question, or are we out of time?
Do we have time before our next guest, Samantha? Because I think we got a couple of minutes still.
Okay, all right. So you tell me when it's time for me to
But
stop talking.
but I don't remember, Samantha, when we.
That's okay.
Yeah. No, we got like 3 minutes, Bonnie.
Perfect. We had a question from some grandparents a couple weeks ago. And they were very, very upset about the fact that the school was sending their son home for disrespecting the teachers.
Yeah.
And so he was given a 3-day suspension, and the grandparents were like, "This is a private school. We pay for it." And my response is, the problem with private school is you don't have any disciplinary protection. Most private schools that I interact with some notable exceptions, have a, what's it called? The first time, one strike, you're out,
Right. Right.
One strike, you're out.
One strike policy.
So, unfortunately, these parents are probably in a private school because that's the best fit they've been able to find.
Right.
But if the school decides to suspend or expel their kid, they really don't have a leg to stand on.
You
So
don't have the same protections. It's part of what we've been discussing with why, this whole idea of going to a strict voucher program that is being pushed by Secretary DeVos is not necessarily a good thing for special education students. It's one of the many reasons.
No, and I appreciated that you were able to step into the fray on that, because it is a political issue, and I know you try to be nonpartisan, but what she's proposing is going to have a lot of adverse impacts for our student population.
Absolutely.
And I'm not trying to say that non-public or private schools aren't wonderful, because some really are a godsend.
Yeah.
And sometimes, if you have a high functioning 5th grader and he's going to matriculate into a middle school that looks like a jail and has 2,500 kids and he's high functioning, thank God there's some other options.
Absolutely. But legislating that it's perfect fit for everybody is not necessarily the thing, and we need to be very mindful and careful about that. So in this instance, with a grandparent writing in, they don't have too much room to stand on because it's a private school.
Well, they can try to get the private school interested in the question of supporting a person with disabilities, but I'd say it's like 50-50. Some people really see it as their mission to serve every child. Other people want to have a pretty happy, picture perfect kind of a look to your school, and having kids that look differently or behave differently doesn't fit into that mindset. So it's a difficult issue, and I guess the coda to all that is we throw around this term non-public school and non-public agency a lot on the show, and the non-public schools and agencies were things that I think sort of came into being with the idea that the public schools were going to have a contract to purchase private services for them. And so that's the distinction we want you to understand we're making. A non-public school is not the same as a private school. A private school doesn't have a contract to provide services to the local public schools, and they are not vetted by the state of California. Whereas the non-public schools have to, the requirements are not particularly exacting, but they do have to meet certain state requirements for the status, same with non-public agencies. And the reason that's important is because districts have contracts, and although they don't like to contract with them, they can contract with them, and they frequently do.
Okay.
So
That's
just some stuff about school, and I'm probably have exceeded my time as usual.
No, now we're out of time, but no, you're good. We thank you as always, Bonnie, and want to remind everybody here, G & Chow, an amazing law firm. You can talk to Bonnie there. Bonnie, do you want to give them the phone number again?
Yes, it's 310-391-0330.
Okay. And we will have you back on the show next week, maybe the bullying show next week. And of course, the week after is Thanksgiving. So we'll be taking a break for Thanksgiving, but then we'll be back in December. And for a couple of weeks before we take a holiday break. But Bonnie, we thank you so much for being here. You always shed lots of light that is helping all of us. And in particular, we had a mom who wrote in with a question that couldn't wait. And I just want to tell nicely on Bonnie that the mom had an IEP yesterday, and so I was able to reach out to Bonnie on Monday to get some, information that was given to the mom, and she was very, very grateful. So thank you for being on call.
So I'm so happy to be on call, and I will let drop that Shannon has other ways of finding me, even if I'm not in the office. So if you have an urgent problem, it took me about 60 seconds to respond to that email. It was no biggie. I hope it went well.
It was awesome. So I hope it went well too. I haven't heard yet. But in any case, we appreciate you more than you could possibly know. You're one of the things on our thankful list.
Well, right back at you, honey.
Well, we will talk to you next week, if not sooner. How about that?
Excellent. Everyone take care.
You too. Bye-bye. Okay, that was Bonnie Yates on the phone from Here, G & Chow. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to be back with Ned Saheen from Brainpower. Stick with us.
Hi, welcome back to Autism Live and What's Left. We're welcoming you back. I'm Lisa, and this is Amy Brown. So happy to have you back, Amy. Thanks for being here.
This is lots of fun.
We're having a great time, and we're doing just a naan bread. It's an Indian traditional bread. I love it. It's really simple to make, but we can do so many variations. And we were just going off about variations earlier. What kind of variations do you think we could do to get creative with this?
Well, we were talking about, like, if you want to substitute a pizza
Right.
crust, that you could use this.
Yeah, no yeast, which is great.
Which is great for the kids that can't handle the yeast.
Right.
And just the ingredients themselves are very simple.
Right.
So a lot of people can handle this when they can't handle other options. But again, it's just about the spices.
Right.
So
Right.
adding in more of the pizza flavoring spices.
And we were playing around with some dessert ideas,
Yeah.
like putting a little bit of cinnamon and honey in with it, and then maybe some fresh berries and some of the So Delicious ice cream.
Exactly.
So, we could have so much fun with this. But let's stay simple. We'll go back to what we were originally going to do. And we're going to start with a half a cup of almond flour. So we'll go ahead and put that in. And then I'm going to do a half a cup of tapioca flour. Now, one of the things that it asks for is just a pinch of salt. Do you mind, Amy, grabbing me just a wee bit of salt there? Thank you. And you can do less or none. It's all good. And again, we're back to cans. We want to make sure they're BPA free. We want to make sure that it's the real food that we're buying, and we've got organic coconut milk, and it's the full fat. Full fat. We want to make sure we have the full fat in what we're cooking with, because the light version just does not turn out as well. So this reminds me a lot of pancakes. So
It's simpler than pancakes.
It is. Less ingredients. So we're going to go ahead, mix this up. Now we're at the skillet. So now what we're going to do is put it onto medium-low heat. These things heat up. The cast iron is so great. Why would you use cast iron over a nonstick?
Well, nonstick is easier because obviously it's not going to stick, but the coating that they use to make it nonstick is very toxic.
Right.
And so when we're focusing so much on trying to do healthy ingredients and being very safe that way, the last thing we want to do is actually cook the food in something that's going to be more toxic.
Right. We don't want to mess up all the good preparation we did in the food in a pan that's going to destroy those wonderful ingredients.
So how do you know when it's time to turn it over?
Well, right about now. It looks, we've got the bubbles going on in the middle, and the sides seem to be ready to go, so we're going to be brave and go in for the turn. So here we are, Aim. We're ready to go. There's one down and 4,000 more to go. Just kidding. But if we want to make and freeze these, we can definitely do that. It's got, like I said, a great consistency. Love the way that it tastes. Definitely appreciate what this is as far as getting away from yeast, extra carbs that our kids don't need. I can even use them. Sometimes I'll make tacos out of these. So it just really depends what you want to go about and do. And we really want to thank everyone on Autism Live for having us. We want to thank you, Amy, for joining us.
Thanks.
Love having you here.
Yes.
And if you have any questions, please email us at autismlive@gmail.com. Or you can email me if you have some recipes you're dying to convert. Lisa at Takanow, TACANOW.org. And we'll see you next time at What's Left?
This cooking video is brought to you by WellAmy.com. Amy, a certified nutritionist and holistic health practitioner, is an expert on autism and special diets. Find ingredients and other GFCF-approved foods and recipes at WellAmy.com.
Welcome back to Autism Live. If you're a fan of our show and have been watching for a while, then you have met our next guest before. Ned Sahin is joining us via Skype, and he is the genius behind Brain Power, or as I've always said, I for a long time I called it Google Glass, and that might be a misnomer now. But Ned, we're so thrilled. You are such a brainiac. You have the best ideas and you implement them. This is one of the smartest things that I have ever seen. Your whole idea of being able to put images over on top of things for kiddos on the autism spectrum. You make smiles and connections happen all over the country. So we're thrilled you're back. I know that you got a big announcement this week, so tell us what's happening.
Thank you so much. It's a great pleasure to be here, to be a member of this community, and I continually am grateful to be a member of the autism community in writ large in many ways. And I completed my PhD at Harvard and had done master's work at MIT, and I felt like I knew something. And then I got out into the real world and realized I was just the beginning. I was just learning. And I've been learning so much from the autism community. I've decided to apply my science to the challenges of autism. We talked about that before, and that was a wonderful conversation. And today I have much more to say, but since people may not have heard that other interview, of course, I just wanted to give a quick thing, which is that this is an augmented reality system for people on the spectrum. And the goal is to help people learn about the world and the social world in ways that are compatible with how their unique brains learn. And that's going to be different for everyone. So we have learning algorithms to customize it to people. And I'll get that down to extremely tangible, but I'll turn it back to you just in case there are some basic questions on that, and then we can do our announcement.
Well, I've always said I just think that this is the most brilliant idea, that if we can have a way, sometimes when we're doing therapy with a kiddo and we're prompting them, we're giving them more information to get them to be able to do the thing that they want to do. And this isn't just kiddos that are on the autism spectrum, by the way. If you could take your coach running with you, and your coach could run alongside you continually and be in your ear and be in your visual space and saying to you, roll your foot this way, you would get better at running or whatever the thing is that you're trying to do that much faster. And of course, for a child or an adult or anyone, at a certain point, you can't be with the coach, right? Because first of all, it could be stigmatizing, or it can be something that gets in the way of the thing that you're needing to do. But you have cleverly found a way to put that coach into the glasses, really. And tell me if I'm overstating or understating it.
You're not overstating it. Thank you. It's exactly that. This is a wearable life coach. That's it. I mean, it is someone there to whisper into your ear the right thing, like helping you understand what the other person is thinking or feeling.
And we're looking at, I'm sorry, Ned, we're looking at a picture right now of 3 kids, and just the looks on these 3 kids' faces of wonder and joy and happiness. Look at, I love, whenever I see you go and do a workshop with kids, it is amazing, because you see kids that are making eye contact. You see kids that are engaged with their environment in a way that we haven't seen before, because you make the environment richer.
It's heads up, hands free, and engaged with you, with their family. It's absolutely unbelievable. We use artificial intelligence to analyze other people's faces and voices and give the person a video game. And the video game is about learning to decode emotions, yes, to make eye contact, but so many other things. And we have some new ones. So again, you wear the device, and the device senses the world and gives you lessons. You don't have to wear it all day. You could wear it for half an hour a day and play a little game with the therapist or with your parent. And then we find that children embody the ideas of the games and then get out there more confident, more enabled, more empowered. These are children, these are adults who are, like us, human and struggling with some of the really complex things. How is it that we know what someone else is feeling at that time? How do we know when it's appropriate to joke, or how close to stand someone, or how loudly to speak? If you get that wrong, it masks so much else that you got right up to that moment. But we use the computer to analyze those situations and to give feedback to the person, but not just give feedback, to measure the performance. So you can know I'm doing 6.7% better this week at guessing whether someone is happy or bored. I'm controlling myself 16% better when I get upset by doing a breathing exercise. We have this cool new app that I wanted to tell you about that I don't know if I told you before, that the accelerometer measures when the person is rocking. The little infrared camera here measures how fast you're blinking, and our patent-pending algorithm measures if your heart is fluttering or if your breathing is quickened. Wow. These are signs of stress. So if the person doesn't like the eye contact game and is stressed, then it just stops. You know, this is specific and tailored and individual to the person. If the person is about to have a meltdown, mom can get a big red alert on her phone and treat her child a little bit better at that moment, or whatever it is, remove the environmental stressor. So these are many new apps. And then let's do the big announcement, and I'll tell you something more that relates to jobs, which is really cool.
All right, tell us the
So-
announcement, though. I can hardly stand it.
Yeah.
Tell
Well,
me.
the big thing is now, after years of careful science and clinical trials, we're ready and we're taking pre-orders right now.
Oh my God.
This is now.
Okay, because honestly, we've been looking at this forever, Ned, and I'm so excited to know that it's now. So what do people have to do so that they can get this on their child's head?
Yes. So please, we have launched a pre-order campaign, and that's on a platform called Indiegogo. It's a strange name, so forget that. Just go to our website /launch. So that's to say brainpower/launch, brain-power/launch. So it's on your screen, I believe, brain-power.com/launch, and that will launch you. And this is of and for the community. We have artwork designed by an autistic employee whom we've employed here and is our artist in resident.
We love that. You're walking your talk.
Yes, and then we have some of our Android code is written by a student coder who is on the autism spectrum, who just graduated from intern status to employee status. So we have multiple, and there are more. Another autistic employee who's she's a biostatistician, and also does picture extractions for some of our materials and some of our videos. So very meticulous, careful to detail. And yeah, we are an army, or we are a team of, by, and for the community. So today, please go to that page. We need to hear from you. Even if you want to give a few dollars just to keep us going, then your comments will mean a lot to us. But if you are ready to purchase the system and be part of possibly the world's most scientific and yet also fun approach to autism, now's the time.
Okay, so let's talk about if they go to Indiegogo and they want to purchase it, what are they getting? Tell us everything that they get.
Okay, so you get, first of all, a nice box designed by another artist of ours, but you get this amazing and magical computer, and that's Google Glass. It has Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, system on a chip, really amazing processor, 16 gigs of memory, and all this other stuff in there. But importantly, it has some very sophisticated sensors that were meant for something else, and we use them to help the people with autism. So you get Google Glass, you get our software and kind of operating system or structure. And that includes several games, like ones about emotions or about transitions to new environments, and many others. On top of that, you get an app for your phone so that you can communicate with your child. Child or adult wears the device, and you can coach him or her, you can see what he or she is seeing, and you can play the two-player games so that it's an interaction and you both are aware of the rewards and so forth. On top of that, you get a web account where all the data come, and you can see how many hundreds of times today did he look at me versus look away? How many minutes this month did he spend rocking, which we pick up with the motion sensor in the device? Or, you know, how many times did she kind of get stressed out about an environment versus being able to handle that environment? So all of these things, data like never before. And someday, not only will you have the data from your child, but you'll have learnings from thousands of others out there. So we can know, why do some people kind of hate noise more but not bothered by light, or vice versa? And why does that correlate with whether this treatment plan goes better? We don't know any of these things yet. But with big data analytics, we're going to be able to. So that's one of the benefits of getting in there early right now.
So Ned, what age range do you think this is ideal for?
Our clinical trial allowed us to test in age 4 to 24. So it's a very broad range. And I'd say we have different apps for different age groups. So for someone who's younger or nonverbal, the app that picks up signs of stress and gives you a breathing exercise to calm down, that works just fine for transitions to new environments. You don't need to be able to be verbal to see where the lights are and where the noise is coming from in the new school before you go there, or to get used to Walmart before you go there. So that's what we offer. And so those ones could be for the younger. For the older, the emotion game has the expert level where you actually dialogue with your mom, or as the parent or therapist, you dialogue with the person on the spectrum about emotions. Like, what do you think makes me happy? And they get points for getting to that level of depth.
Wow.
So that can go pretty much up to any age. That's a complex thing for a mom to ask her child anywhere on the spectrum or wherever you believe whatever we call neurotypical lies.
Right.
That's a complex thing. So we have kind of not every level, but we have many levels.
Amazing, Ned. So again, we want to tell people, let's put the website back up there for them, Samantha. So you want to go to brain-power.com/launch, and that will take you to the Indiegogo page so that you can check out a wide variety of different things and decide if you're ready to do this. That you is it a pre-order that they're doing, or they are going to be ordered? Okay. And then when do you think the pre-order will get to them? When's delivery date?
It's a few months.
Okay.
We set kind of summer just to be safe.
Okay.
And because we'll be shipping worldwide. We'll be shipping to India, to the Philippines, everywhere. So we want to give some time, but it's pretty soon. I mean, this is exciting. We're doing this, and we're doing it now.
And on your website, you got a lot more information too, because we've covered some of this before on the show. And for people, as you said, who haven't seen the interview, check out the website to see some of the different things. Because was it summer before last that you got into a van and toured all over the United States and went places and put these on kids to see what their reaction was and had families see? And it really was transformative for so many kids.
It changed
because it's so smart. But I think one of the best things that it is, Ned, is that it's just in and of itself, it's reinforcing to people putting them on. It's exciting when you get to see your world, but then see things on top of it. It's like life on steroids.
It is. In fact, maybe I should make it tangible for people. So, for instance, when I wear this, suddenly it'll find the face of the person I'm talking to and draw a circle and then turn it into a cartoon. We have our own cartoons, like we have Bailey the Brain Deer.
Wow.
And that catches my attention. And when I look, I start getting points for maintaining that social interaction. And then I have to guess whether the person is smiling, for instance. And the way that works is I see the person, I'm still there, just like you can see my eyes and I can see yours. I'm still there, but on top of that, I'll see an emoticon, say a smiley face and a surprised face on either side. And I just have to say the right one, because this thing can listen to voice commands, or if I'm not speaking, just tilt my head to one side or the other, and I'm choosing which one is the right one, and then I get rewards and gems and so forth. But importantly, I'm getting the reward for being in the social moment.
Yeah, I don't know if people understand when you said before it's heads up, hands-free technology. Explain exactly what that means.
In many cases, people use iPads and smartphones. And the problem with that is this: you're looking down to interact with the technology. And we already struggle to look up enough in life and see other people. In this case, all of that computerized interaction happens right here in this little computer screen. And here, which is sort of the mouse pad, and then by spoken command. So my hands are free. I can be doing something. I can be learning how to do a new task. And I'm heads up. I'm not looking down at a screen. And I can engage with you, with anyone else in the world.
Yeah. If people haven't had an opportunity to ever try Google Glass and they don't know what it looks like, Do you have a video, or is there a place that they can go so that they can see what it's like from the viewer's perspective?
We recognize this is an issue because it's a totally new platform, a totally new kind of technology. So we have really invested time in videos. We have videos all over the website and in our YouTube channel, so you can see other children like your own or other people like yourself using the system. Adults, young children, verbal, nonverbal, however you want to categorize our wonderful friends and community, but you can see other people using it, and there's some testimonials and there's some tutorials, I wanted to say, on exactly how to use the software.
Okay, great. So all of that is at brain-power.com. And then if you go to brain-power.com/launch, you can be on the Indiegogo page to find all about this wonderful product. And it's here, it's now. You can pre-order, which is really amazing. Ned, you know from the beginning I got this. I saw this and I was
Thank
like,
you. Yes, you did.
this is clever. This is it. So cool. So I'm glad that it's finally time. And you know, the next time you come to Los Angeles, I keep waiting. I want to play. So I'm glad that we're almost there. But I'm so thrilled that you were able to join us this very timely day to let us know what's happening. We want to encourage everybody, at least go check it out. It is mind-blowing. And excuse me, when all the times as you were touring and going different places, what I especially loved was seeing the kids' faces. And it's all written on their faces, how excited they are, how open their faces are, and the fact that they're looking up and engaged and involved. It really is awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. So, it's our mission around here.
Well, I love it. So you got to come to LA. You got to come visit us. But so again,
absolutely.
brain-power.com/launch. Do it now. Thank you so much for being with us, Ned.
Thank you. Thank you for all that you do.
Thank you for all you do. Say hello to everybody there for us.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I also wanted to say, because we haven't said this all this week, you know, I get so excited about the different things and the steps that we're taking forward. And I think that this is a big one. Brain Power, check it out. But we have, and I can't believe we waited until this moment in the show at the end of this week. On Monday night, the show The Good Doctor, which we've already talked about here on the show, and what an amazing show, and it's the #1 rated show, and it has Freddie Highmore playing a young doctor who is on the autism spectrum. And what's kind of funny is that, you know, a lot like in Brain Power, where we get to see the screen in Freddie Highmore's life, and he's seeing, like, they see a patient and we get to see all the screens. That's kind of what Brain Power looks like. But on Monday night, this particular Monday coming up, there is a very special episode of The Good Doctor that's happening. And I'm so excited about this. Kobe Bird has a role in this coming Monday's show. If you watch the show, you know Kobe, because Kobe has been on the show, I think, 4 times now, if I'm not mistaken. And I have a frog in my throat. I apologize. Kobe is now 15 years old, on the spectrum. He is in the Miracle Project, and the first time he came on the show, in fact, the first 2 times I think he was on the show, he came to be with the Miracle Project and talk about a show that he was doing. And then Kobe had done a summer project and a summer camp where it was Broadway stars, not for kids on the spectrum, by the way, just a camp for kids that like to act and perform. And he did this camp, and they do them all over the country. And then later on, they pick just a couple of kids from each camp that they invite to come to New York and do a showcase, which Kobe was chosen. I'm not sure, but I think it was the first time that they had chosen somebody who was on the autism spectrum. Kobe came back on the show because they were raising money for him to be able to go to New York. I think that was just a year ago. And Kobe was on the show and he was saying, you know, I made up my mind. I want to be an actor. I want to be a professional actor. He was 14 years old. And you know, you go to 14-year-olds. Of course you do, dear. Right? But Kobe, like you could feel it was radiating off of him. He was serious business about it, right? He was not just a 15-year-old saying this, right? So Kobe went off to New York and did his showcase, and it was absolutely wonderful. And, you know, came back and got himself an agent, and then did a lovely little spot on Speechless, which we talked about here with you guys on the Oscar episode of Speechless. Check it out. I'm sure it's on Hulu. And Kobe has continued to act and perform, and he was one of the performers when we did the Corey Feldman. He did a beautiful performance, a song that he did that blew Corey away for that whole fundraiser. And then very recently, Kobe booked a huge role on The Good Doctor. It's not a little scene from what I understand. You're going to see Kobe a lot on The Good Doctor. Do not miss it. We're still going to be talking about it when we're on the red carpet on Saturday because it's that big of a deal, and we just are so excited. And we're at some point soon we're going to have Kobe, if we can get him. He's pretty popular right now, and we have to stand in line, and we will stand in line to see Kobe. But please support and watch the show. It's all I'm going to be talking about on Wednesday. I'm just going to tell you now. And then don't forget, then hopefully I'm going to have enough time to do autism in the classroom, Samantha. Don't forget that Saturday we're going to be live on the red carpet with Temple Grandin. I'm just saying. And I know that we're going to be live on the red carpet with a whole lot of people, and we're going to be there with Larry King, and it's a wonderful event to raise fabulous money towards a facility that is going to help employ all of our kids of all of our abilities. And we're so thrilled for Joanne Laura. And so I don't want to minimize any of that, but I know that you guys will want to know that we'll be on the red carpet live with Temple Grandin. So all of that and much more. But I wanted to take just a couple of seconds to talk about autism in the classroom because we haven't had time to do it in weeks. Just a little tip that we have for autism in the classroom. And sometimes you can apply it to the rest of your life. And today we want to talk about motivating operations. That when we talk about what causes a meltdown, sometimes you'll have your expert say, well, what was the motivating operation? Or as I like to say, what else was on board? Sometimes it is something in the direct child's environment, as in it could be something in their stomach. But a lot of times it's what's happening in the environment. And if we are mindful about the environment around our kids, sometimes we can head tantrums and meltdowns off. And when we do that, we make them more able to get in touch with what's actually happening within the environment, right? So for a classroom teacher, and by the way, this isn't just for kiddos who are on the autism spectrum. For a classroom teacher, you want to be very mindful about your learning environment. What is on the walls? How are the desks configured? What is available? What are the sounds that they can hear? What are the smells that they can smell? And visually, what are they being presented with? If you doubt for a second that environment has a role to play in the classroom, do yourselves a favor and go visit on a school, ostensibly your child's school, when it is back to school night, right? It's going to be a little bit of sensory overload then because they tend to decorate at every available space. I know one teacher who would hang things from her ceiling so that as you would walk, you would be whapped in the face by things. But you know what? That's not the teacher that I would put my child in their classroom. While it's very creative and it's a great use of space, it's somebody who isn't going to be thinking about people's sensory issues, right? And so take a look and see the feel that you get when you come into a classroom. Does it make you feel creative? Does it make you feel like asking questions? Does it make you feel like you need to stand in line and not move any which way? You get a real feel for what's happening in the classroom when you see how the teacher has decorated the room. So to teachers, I want to say to you, we've talked before on the show about how obviously there are visual things that you want up on the board, things that are inspirational. You want to have the rules posted clearly so that everybody knows, especially, those 5 classroom rules that say, here's the lay of the land. This is what we prize is most important. kindergarten, and that those change with, from kindergarten up through, look, I've taught junior high and high school, and I still had the rules on my wall, visible for everybody to see, colorful. The way I displayed it to 7th graders is not the way I displayed it to 12th graders, but you got to have the rules present, and then don't overdo it. Be mindful about everything that is visible and everything that they can smell and everything that they can hear goes into a bucket. And from that bucket, we want to pull scholars, not people who are stressed out, not people who are understimulated or overstimulated. And it's okay to experiment. Put some things up on the wall and see if it's working for you. Take them down, move them around, and see until you get the right mix for the students that you have right now. But what's happening in the environment will determine to some extent how well they're going to do in class. Okay, we're out of time, but don't forget, Good Doctor on Monday. On Saturday night, be on our Facebook so that you can be watching us live on the red carpet. And we'll be back here Wednesday to talk about all of it and ever so much more. And we will have Dr. Grant Bichet live. That will be on Wednesday. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.